Hi, everyone. This is October 2nd, and this is God Talk. And we are continuing to talk about the tenets of white supremacy and also about racial equity. I've posted a little poster about the principles of racial equity in the chat. And we're going to get started like we always do with our introductions and an icebreaker question. So just say the name that you want to be called and your pronouns, because pronouns are very important. They're life and death to some people. And then Leo's going to give us the icebreaker question, and we'll just go around quickly, basically in the order that we signed in on. All right.
All right. Hey, I know we do this often, but first I want to say, since this is going on YouTube, make sure that video that you subscribe and that you as well. And today's icebreaker question is: vampires, zombies, ghosts, or aliens? For me, it would have to be vampires and ghosts and zombies, because
all of that. What?
Of
Except
Halloween.
for aliens? No aliens. You just didn't pick everything. You said what do you mean? You just said everything except for aliens. Okay. I'm gonna choose aliens because like it doesn't matter how you immigrate. Oh, and also, hi, my name is Jared. Pronouns are all of the above, right? Every pronoun in the world, right? Yes, yes. So yeah, Carol.
Okay, I'm Carol, she, her, and I guess I'll go with aliens for the same reason. Although I do kind of like vampires, and ghosts are pretty cool too. I'm not into zombies at all. Okay, so y'all know me. I'm kind of have my cake and eat it too. I gotta have it all. All right. So Marco.
Thank you, Mama. Hello, everybody. My name is Marco. The King Marco.
King Marco or whatever. Okay. So you're he, him. What do you like out of those four things? Which do you like the best? Aliens, zombies, ghosts, or vampires?
I got big. I got go. I go by Marco, but
You don't like monsters, so you don't like zombies?
no.
I agree. Okay. All right. Let's see who came on next. Lynn.
Hi, I'm Lynn, she, her. If I had to choose, give me ghosts.
Okay. All right, George.
I'm George, no pronouns. I just like George. And I was excited because I thought Leo said goats. And so I was gonna pick goats. I like goats.
The goat party coming up. By the way, speaking of goats, Suzette is at a conference, so she's gonna watch online later. So anyway, I know she sure is excited about that social coming up. All right, Kate.
Was the question, what is your favorite out of those choices?
I believe so.
Okay.
That's the way I took it.
Mine would have to be ghost.
Okay. All right.
Oh, by the way, my name is Kate. My pronouns are they, them.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's just kind of recap for our audience.
Got Chelsea. Chelsea.
Oh, Chelsea.
Hi, everybody. Chelsea, she, her pronouns. If I had to choose, I feel like all of those things would kill me faster. So I'm going to go with ghost.
Okay. And Kreger.
Hi, Kreger.
Just now getting on.
Yes.
I think it's connecting.
He's connecting.
Okay, there you go.
There you go. Hi, Gregor.
Okay, repeat the question for him.
You're on
Okay.
mute.
Gregor, you are on mute and we can't see you, but I'm sure you're here, just like, you know, the Holy Spirit is here. All right, so the question is vampires, zombies, ghosts, or aliens? Overstimulated.
Gregor, did you hear that?
Zombies, vampires, ghosts, or aliens?
Yes.
What is it? Who would you choose?
Yes. Which is the best for you?
This is how.
It's to you, Gregor. So we're just waiting on. You're the last one.
He Googling it, ghosts.
Are you Googling?
No.
Answer?
Oh, it's my turn to go?
Yeah, you're the last one.
Okay. Yeah, well, definitely aliens, because I'm from another planet myself.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay. Well, we've been talking some about the tenets of white supremacy, which is not what we're not talking about just what white supremacists, racist, fascists do, but it is what they do, but it's also what the culture that we're all swimming in. So we're trying to just understand the culture, the hegemony that seems to be the rule of order. So because in order to change, we need to understand the beliefs behind the systems that are at play. So I just want to say a word about intersectionality. I don't remember exactly what I said last week, but so pardon me if I repeat a little bit. But basically, this whole construct was set up historically because the power elite constructed and continue to construct white supremacy to intersect with and support and reinforce and reproduce capitalism, class oppression, gender oppression, heterosexism, cis heterosexism, ableism, and Christian hegemony. And these in turn reinforce white supremacy. And so let me kind of give you some examples of how that works. For example, like capitalism teaches us that profit is more important than people, and it advantages those in the white quote unquote group, although not equally. Classism teaches us that the wealthy are deserving and the poor are to be blamed, while reproducing racism in the disparate reproduction of wealth and the deadly exploitation of labor. We've talked about the exploitation of labor here in these circles. And then another way, so going on to like the next thing down the list, sexism and heterosexism teach us that white men are superior, gender binaries are normal, and gender fluidity is threatening. And the degree of threat is tied to racism as well. Christian hegemony teaches us that Christians, particularly a certain kind of white Christian, are divinely capable of shaping and defining reality for the rest of us. So, in other words, the power elite design, whether it's intentional or not, these ideologies teach us like who is valuable and who is not. And white supremacy operates in collaboration with all these other oppressions. Therefore, they reinforce and reproduce each other. So, I've just been seeing a lot in the world, particularly about how well, you see it in white Christian nationalism, how this idea of Christianity and who has decided among the power elite what that means, how that has been pushed on other people in the world. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly where to start. Perfectionism is one of the tenets of white supremacy culture that we touched on a bit last week. Why don't we start there? And perfectionism, we're not talking about just the desire to do better and be better. It's tied in with another one of the tenets, like there's only one right way. And it's also tied in with paternalism, which is like, I'm the one in power, and so I'm going to tell you what's good for you and what right and wrong is, and I have the right to explain to you how things need to be. So I think we've seen that in some of the discussions that we've had about what's going on around us. Jared and Leo, would you like to expand on that a little bit?
Go you.
So, I come from it from a very interesting angle, where I sort of center the idea of coercive control, right? Whenever I think about all of the isms, and especially the cult of white supremacy, right? Because this is the tactic that is used, right? Like I look at the level of force, right? So, like a measure of coercive control, because coercive control is actually illegal in like other states and other countries, right? That like outside of the Americas, right? Because it is the exact measurement by which cults are built, right? It is the exact skill that we use to get people to believe things that are untrue. And, a lot of people saw how Nazi Germany, how, a lot of authoritarian dictatorships, right, really began with the use of coercive control and said, no, we don't want that here. But America, we haven't taken a strong stance against that because we haven't had a Trump administration yet. So like a truly authoritarian type, like we've had like an entire sea between us and a lot of the travesties that have occurred in like those dictatorship spaces, and we've done a really good job at creating an idea of a bubble. So like for me, for instance, whenever I think about like these ideas of perfectionism, right, I also think about how they are enforced, right? And I also think, and specifically like with ideas of where you have like made up languages, right, that sort of create this sense of isolation, right? Where like for instance, I believe the military has like they speak in acronyms, right? The medical field speaks in acronyms. Academia speaks in acronyms, right? Like and like a lot of rich speak, right, is less acronymistic and more just more using of like archaic phrases and archaic ways of thoughts and nomers. And like the language barrier kind of enforces isolation, and it's a peculiar form of perfectionism, as an example that we often are subject to as people of color, because like oftentimes we are shamed for our grammar, right? We are abused for having like our own dialect, right? Speaking in what they call Ebonics, right? But is just you know, African American, you know, like vernacular. And you know, like these sort of forms of division are propped up as, you know, incorrect grammar, incorrect punctuation, incorrect everything, right? But it's really just a form of coercive control. And so I present the idea that, you know, even perfectionism itself, it's a lie that creates a form of coercion, right? Because like you could throw the dichotomy away actually and be fully functional. The idea of perfect and imperfect, because it's like saying, you know, like what, you got 100 on your test, and that makes you better than somebody else who made a 99 or a 97 or a 95, right? It's so artificial. It doesn't make any sense. You know, you meet it on a soul by soul basis. That person that's got nothing to do with their hierarchy, and where they are in their lives. So yeah, like I think it's really important to look at all of the ways in which white supremacy can be coercive, and is using some sort of tactic to maintain control, like especially when you're talking about perfectionism, because you will find that that is the degree that all the tactics are measured. But there are a lot of tactics, there are a lot of techniques, there's a lot of tricks. They've had a lot of time to perfect this skill. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was muted. Going along with that, I think of just the ideas of good and bad itself, and how that fits into white Christian nationalism, and who decides what's good and bad, and all these crazy ideas that they've come up with, or that seem crazy to me, at least, about about race, and about women's rights, and about especially about gender. Just more trans bills on the Texas books again this week. It just seems like it goes on and on, and I think I think conservative traditional Christianity, that white Christian nationalism has taken the worst pieces of and lifted up, just uses these fear tactics of hell to try to keep people in line. So that's exactly what I think you're talking about with this coercive control. I mean, not to mention what our government's doing with the taking over of this police state of certain cities and spaces. So, yeah, that's so. What is?
Chelsea has her hand up.
Thank you. I don't know why I can't see that. Chelsea?
Yes, I'm so glad that you brought up Christian nationalism, Carol, because I was tying into kind of what Jared was talking about with coercive control. I watched a YouTube video the other day about a girl talking about her experience being born into and deconstructing in her adulthood Christian nationalism that she was raised in. And, you know, she even like bought her old textbooks, like her old elementary homeschool textbooks, and was reading excerpts from them. And it was just really just like, I can't even describe like the feeling that it brought in me. It like made my stomach sink and made me sick to my stomach, because it's people like that they have those strong beliefs in Christian nationalism. They're encouraged to have multiple children and to raise their children in this, to just kind of add more and add more. And like she was talking about how she wasn't taught to have her own thoughts and opinions, and even in the textbooks there was things like basically just flat out saying scientists are liars, like when talking about evolution and, things like that. And it was just so astounding to me, the level of the propaganda that is in these so-called textbooks. And that's where it really lines in with coercive control, because who's more susceptible to coercion than children? So that is, the big thing that I thought about this week. And so I just wanted to share that because it actually tied into what both of you said. So
Good. That excellent. That those are some great points. And I want to point out that again, these tenets are the culture that we're swimming in. And so I feel and I don't want to, it's really easy to fall into the trap of just saying everybody that voted a certain way is a bad person, da da da. And while we do have to hold people accountable for the choices that they make, it's also, I mean, this way of thinking it's if just think if you were a child brought up in that environment and how hard it would be to break free. So before we go too much farther, I want to point out the little poster that I put in the chat about that has to do with racial equity principles. And so I mean, these are ways of fighting against these tenets and just deconstruct not and reconstructing something better. And one of the last one, the 10th one on that list, is to seek connection and to choose love over fear. So I think that's just a really good one to keep in mind as we're dealing with people who think differently than us. Jared and Leo?
Oh, I just wanted to add to what Chelsea said slightly. Yeah, I had one of those when I grew up in private school, and like it was a religious private school. It was a cult. It was a cult basically. And yeah, like straight up, I had one of those books that were talked about science as if it was as if a lot of the things that we take as facts as were theories, right? They were like, there's the theory of evolution, there's a theory of DNA, there's a theory of like like there being ages before the Bible, and then there's the fact of creationism, like straight up, like that was that's not that's what we're learning. That's no that's what the people in positions of power are learning, right? Because so often our government officials like scouted and specifically hired from these private schools, right? A good 95% of people from the FBI are also just so happen to be ex-Mormons or current Mormons, right? And so like it's very much not even an us versus, like this is what we're learning right now, is how to know the people in the positions of power right now, because that like what Chelsea was talking about, like that's some shit that I remember, I have keen memories of, and thinking like, what is happening right now? Like where am I? Every science class was so freaking weird. These are cults.
Yeah. So number 3 on this list is think and act collectively. So how is that different than I mean, if we think and act collectively, how is that different than a cult might do it?
Why? Why? Why?
Well,
yes, Jared and Leo.
Well, a lot of like a lot of white supremacy does this thing where that's very like individualistic, right? Where if you have a problem, it's because of you, right? It's not because of a system. If your parents are poor, it's because they didn't work hard enough, right? It has nothing to do with the color of the skin. It has nothing to do with the fact that their disabilities. It has nothing to do with anything else, right? It's because they didn't bootstrap themselves hard enough, right? And like on like thinking collectively really kind of like twists that, because it's not. It's not about just centering the person in problems that are systemic. It's about being able to come together and address, in my opinion.
Yes, and I think it speaks to the good of the individuals within the collective.
Yeah.
but it's a way of
Oh,
thinking
yeah.
collectively without forcing everybody into the same little mold.
Go.
Yeah, and you mentioned about ableism too. Do you want to say more about that? Chelsea's got a hand raised.
Chelsea.
Oh, I was just gonna say I feel like the answer kind of ties into like what you said with number two, like leading with love is very important. And I think when you think about cults, often it's, one person using, like, having a scapegoat, whether that's a person, a group of people, an idea, a system. That's the scapegoat, that's the evil thing. And it's all about taking advantage of other people and, coercing them to, whether it's line your pockets, feed your ego. It's all about self. But when I think about thinking as a collective, where it's not entering that cult-like mentality, I'm thinking about, as long as, you're thinking collectively towards the common good, towards your fellow human, and you're leading with love, I think that's the most important first step. And, not entering that kind of mindset. As long as you're not using other people or groups of people as scapegoats and, taking advantage of people. I think that's the number one important thing.
Yeah, and as Jesus said, the most important thing is love God and love your neighbor, and we're all neighbors. So and so Jared's gonna answer my question next, but all you who haven't spoken, feel free to raise your hand and say what you're thinking too. All right, Jared.
Oh, the question about ableism, yes. Yes, absolutely. So like also there's like a common thing that occurs whenever it comes to any form of like white supremacist culture, that I kind of wanted to touch on, which is like the constant occurrence of ableism. Because usually whenever you have perfectionism, you have immediately everybody who isn't neurotypical, right? Isn't just doesn't have it. Everybody that has ADD, ADHD, autism, any sort of like trauma, really, suddenly they become alienated because they can't perform as well. And even those who can, it's usually due to some form of neurodivergence that causes them to burn out quite quickly and be, they have their level of special interest be weaponized. So yeah, like it's, I just kind of want to make sure that we're aware that that's like a constant thing in all like white supremacy, because like cults and like just like white supremacy really hate medical care. And because like they said, like to accept medical care is to be like, well, I can't solve this through prayer and bootstraps alone, right? Like I can't just do this with my individual self-will. And that's scary. That's scary. That defangs the creature. And so like I just kind of wanted to point that out for everybody, because like I don't know if y'all noticed that, like as a common element because every instance of racism that I've experienced also had a level of like performance expectation that most people couldn't reach. Most people, especially if they were neurodivergent.
That's a really good point. And I like what you brought up about then it means like faith and prayers haven't worked and stuff. And I'm reminded of like one time in Texas, we were invited to a church by, I think it was somebody, wasn't it like on your Special Olympics team, like a mom or something from or I don't know, it must not have been. But anyway, we got to their church and I finally realized that they thought that they could heal Marco out of his wheelchair if oh my God. It was I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I was so horrified that I had fallen into this trap and I didn't want Marco to think he was anything less than perfect just the way he is. And that's exactly what I think we need to be sharing in our congregations, that that we are not broken. Marco, I see the hand. Thank you. He thinks I'm talking too much, Krieger, and that we need to get through the hands right away. But so I'll try to take his advice. But anyway, I think the whole idea that we are broken is kind of a twisting of the Christian message completely. And I don't think Jesus, like even the man who the scripture calls blind, in the scripture he asked, what do you want me to do for you? You know, Jesus doesn't just say, oh well, you need to walk. That's what normal people do, quote unquote. uh but Jesus says, what do you need? And some of us, you know, don't need our basic selves, our ADD selves, or our cerebral palsy selves, or our whatever. We don't need those things changed. We need something healed in our broken hearts. Kreger?
Okay.
So what was it specifically for the young lady who was the white Christian nationalist? What specifically happened to her that made her realize that she had anything to deconstruct to begin with? What got her to that aha moment that said, wait a minute, something probably isn't right here? Oh, I guess Chelsea stepped away. I mean, I haven't read what did she watch? A documentary or read a book or what?
Documentary. I know.
She said, "Give me a second."
Yeah, she said, "Give her a second."
Okay.
I know there was one that I watched specifically where it was like she was in the Mormon cult and she absolutely did not honestly might have stayed a white supremacist had her husband not cheated on her. And he was abusive the whole time, right? Like he was abusive the whole time. And so like sometimes like it takes a lot, you know. But what about you, Chelsea?
You're on mute, Chelsea.
Sorry, I lost you guys for a second. I'm in the drive-thru. I was on my way home from my MRI. I'm so sorry. So what happened that got her to that point where she was like, this is not okay, was she actually went to college. And she was so sheltered to the point where she didn't even go to co-op with homeschool. And her mom had a lot of medical issues, so they hardly went to church. So she was not socialized at all. And it got her, you know, meeting new people, realizing she couldn't even function enough to be in a classroom, to be having a job. And then she met her boyfriend, who she ended up marrying. She married a African man, and he had to even explain to her the racism that he experiences, because she had like most likely never met a black person in her life. And like, especially because she was just at home 24/7, like they didn't even let them go in the front yard to play. Like it was that serious. And so that's kind of like more so what it took for her to leave, was just actually getting out there and meeting just your everyday average human being.
So there again, we get
And
to
therapy.
that seek connection, but also what we've said many times is get out of your comfort zone. God did not call us to be comfortable.
I
So,
think about me though, and here I am at 62 and I am absolutely entrenched in the belief systems of like what most of the people in this room believe. And I just can't imagine a conversation that I could potentially have with any kind of conservative that would ever change my mind about what I think and what I believe is right. I don't, no one could ever convince me that what ICE is doing right now is the correct thing to do because they're here illegally. And so and I think it's the same way for the people on the other side too. There's absolutely nothing that I can say that's going to change someone's mind over these things that they deeply believe are true and correct. And that's my conundrum, or whatever you say.
conundrum. Yeah, I think that
Conundrum.
I think that's easy to get really pessimistic about changing anybody, but I think that well, like Chelsea was talking about this person, just a lot of this white supremacy culture is just kind of built in. And what she said about going to college, I mean, think about how much of this administration is against higher education, and they're against you getting out there and learning more. And there's a reason for that. And there's a reason why they're afraid of colleges being too liberal, because learning opens you up. It helps you wake up, for lack of a well, to use the word that they spit through their teeth. Woke, we're woke. And I think it's possible for people to wake up even after a Rumpelstiltskin kind of a sleep.
I think the most hopeful thing I've seen all week was when they flew all those military people in from all over the world. And I don't know where they were, sitting in Virginia, I guess, someplace, and forced to listen to the Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States prattle on about nothing, essentially. And everybody was just sitting there like, you know, just, and it just made me kind of happy. I'm like, wait a minute, these are the people with their fingers on the trigger, so to speak. And I'm just wondering, are they going to follow an order that comes from either one of these buffoons that were up there talking with all their blather and all their hate? I got the feeling that several people in the room, they're not going to just resign like Haig said they should. If you're not with this party, you do the right thing, just resign. I don't think they're going to resign. I think they're going to stay, and when their moment comes, they will shine. I mean, that was just the feeling, that was the perception that I got. So it gave me a little bit of hope in the midst of all this other negativity. I was like, well, this is our top military leadership going, I don't like what I'm hearing. No.
Yeah.
What culture in this country is more inclusive and I mean, I played drums on military bases, Air Force bases, Army bases, naval bases, I spent a lot of my 20s and teens, on military campuses, and there's no more diverse communities that we have are the military communities. And so the fact that these people are stepping in after the military communities have learned how to get along, have learned how to show respect for one another, and now you got these people coming in and saying, wait a minute, no, we're not going to do this anymore, we're not going to do that anymore. And these people are out there going, what are you talking about? You're
Well,
ridiculous.
military communities are pretty diverse in terms of how people come into them, but they are a very structured place where you're taught to think group speak, where it is a very cultish type situation. So, and and it's becoming less and less diverse now that they've kicked all trans people out of the military and those kind of things. So yeah, there's some pluses and minuses, and there are some things. It made me think of the No Kings protests that have happened before and are coming up again. Lynn, before you speak, I want to read. I want to say something about what you put in the chat. The surest thing to work up a crusade. This is a quote from Aldous Huxley. The surest way to work up a crusade in favor of some good cause is to promise people they will have a chance of maltreating someone. To be able to destroy with good conscience, to be able to behave badly and call your bad behavior righteous indignation. This is the height of psychological luxury, the most delicious of moral treats. I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, I can't imagine, um, just the ability to maltreat someone as being something I would want to be the foundation of my life, or the treat, the carrot in front of me. And I kind of feel sorry for the people who, um, I mean, I know there's a lot of anger in the world, and there's certainly times I want to hurt somebody. That, don't get me wrong, but but I think in terms of like basing your your of that being an incentive for you, I I feel more sorry for people that are like that, and I hope that our our faith community can be a haven away from that, and we can base our principles and our values on something much more beautiful than that. Lynn?
Well, that's the tactic that white supremacists and Christian nationalists use.
It is.
So I think it was Lyndon Johnson who said that if you want people to follow you, to give you money, give them a chance to look down on someone. And if you give them an opportunity to look down on someone, they'll empty their pockets for you. So our political system, to a certain extent, is built on that theory, that I've got to dehumanize the other, anyone who's not like me, in order to and it makes them feel good, apparently. Now I
Well, it
come
makes
from
them feel like they have more power, at least.
Yeah, well, probably makes them feel good. I mean, the people at January 6th were firmly believed that they were justified in feeling and doing what they said and did, and the way they behaved, and they were out to maltreat someone, So, but as I the thing that strikes me the most is the other thing that I put in the chat, which is, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. And along that line, I was thinking, what would our world look like if we all lived the golden rule? if we all just treated each other the way we want to be treated. But then, of course, you know, that sounds simplistic. But I had a conversation with someone the other day, and that was the crux of it. We have to look at people and treat people and talk to people and the same way we want to be looked at and talked to and treated.
Yes.
And if we just start with that, if we just start with the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, it's really pretty simple. Yeah, there's intersectionality. Yeah, there's racism. Yes, there's sexism. Yes, there's all the isms, and they are never going away. As a Black person of 73 years, lived in this country all my life in the South and in the North, I can tell you that you cannot legislate morality. You cannot legislate morality. It starts in the heart.
Exactly.
And people have to change their hearts.
And that's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
And thank you all for helping me and helping us collectively together look at changing our own hearts. Thank you for that. What a beautiful way that God is flowing through all of us. So I think what you said about the golden rule is exactly what Jesus was saying about love your neighbor. And that's just, you know, we've made Christianity so complicated, and it really isn't. It's all about love. So Jared and Leo.
Yes, I love that. And you know, like it's exactly what y'all say, that we really have to pay attention to, because in a lot of ways, because y'all said a lot of things, like Kreger, and you know, like it can feel very hopeless, right? Whenever you are dealing with somebody who doesn't, you know, want to grow, right? Doesn't want to, you know, transform themselves into like someone who isn't racist, right? It's very hard to do the right thing and to be the right thing whenever you are addicted to anger, to frustrations, to, you know, misgivings and all the things, right? And you know, like it's so very hard whenever that's like the tactic that is being used to, you know, be able to do something while someone's in the midst of that sort of coercive control. Because like well, you know, like we all have lost so many family members to white supremacy, right? We have that's the force caused people to be homophobic or transphobic or, you know, racist or sexist or all the things to us. And we've all lost somebody to that ideology. And, you know, to this day, so that's really the question, right? Like how, like what you asked, Kreger, you know, like is the question, because it would be nice for Thanksgivings to be where a space where everybody can come together, right? And be in community and love one another and all the things. It would be nice to be able to spend time with everybody and that we, you know, grew up with in high school or, you know, college even, right? But it's so very hard with all these coercive tactics occurring in the unconscious, right? Because it's like it's not just anger, right? It's every emotion. We found ways to play with all the forms, all the things that we seek emotionally, right? If it's anger, then yeah, we understand that, right? But then there's also fear, right? That we often say oh no, I'm gonna get replaced, right? Like, you know, my numbers of my community, right, are dwindling, right? And you know, they're being replaced by people of color, right? If it's not fear or anger, right, it is clout, right? We seek money, we seek economy, we seek like so much like superficiality, right? We yearn for all this privilege, and we know what we got to do to get it, right? And even if it's not clout, right, it is the ability to like create some form of structure, some form of bubble, right, where I don't have to worry because everything is perfect and ideal, right? And we found a way to weaponize the entire human experience towards white supremacy, because they really, all those people who were recruited from these these institutions, these scholastic institutions that were centered around specific religions, right? That were placed into government positions, spent a lot of time brainstorming on how we can move people back into those sort of coercive control networks, right? To lengthen their numbers. And it's so very hard, but we must at the very least have conversations like these, right? Because if we don't, then they just rattle around in the unconscious, and we just harm one another by accidentally wielding the oppressor's weapon against one another without thinking that it's really just, a plaything, a play instrument, a way to dialogue.
Good points. Kreger?
I have to interrupt this program for just a minute to share a personal moment with Lynn. And it was just, I went to Resurrection last Sunday and I sang, and then at the end, up comes Lynn and her wife. And I just embraced Lynn. And I was like, you are even more beautiful in person than you are on TV. And I was just so tickled that y'all were at church on Sunday.
And you give the best hugs. And you give the best hugs.
That was an embrace, Lynn. There's a difference between a hug and an embrace. And that was truly, I was holding on to your love in that moment. And I thank you for that opportunity, because we've been on here for like over 2 years now. And so, okay, back to normal programming.
Well, I think you brought it back beautifully, and you're talking about how we make these connections. And I'm sorry I can't hug any of you in person, but I certainly send some virtual hugs, and I just love all of y'all being here and connecting with each other. And we are kind of getting toward the end of our time, and um, I think we've already brought it around to our image of God, because we've talked so much about the God of love, that we are created in that image. We reflect that image, each of us, in our individual ways. Right. So, including our vulnerabilities when it comes to not being being differently abled. Yes, Marco?
Thank you. Yeah, mama, I can't get one.
You'll tell us step one, and it's what?
If
If you get mad, then what? Talk to God.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe talk to God in that very beautiful musical way that Craig brought. That was awesome. And in our online in our online discussions, I'd said something about wanting a Forever Blessed CD, and so Suzette's going to bring me one when she comes to Taos, and but she also included a link to a Forever Blessed concert, and so Marco and I got to watch that Sunday afternoon, and that was beautiful too. Oh, I'm so glad you were there and got to share your talents. So as we're winding up, Kreger had suggested previously that we kind of go around and share some of our impressions of the night. And I wonder, George and Kate, since neither of you have said much today, if you have anything that that spoke to you tonight.
I do.
Okay.
Um,
Go. Go. But
what Lynn had put up about what motivates a group, and then I apply that to the group who's fighting against the power currently. And what motivates me to be there is freedom for everyone. And that's what it gets down to for me. And that's why I'm going to be out there on October 18th. It's going to be a huge protest. They've already surpassed the people who have signed up way past 13 million, which they got last time, but
Nice. Nice.
that really that made me think about that.
Well, you'll have to share your sign if you take one. All right. I think I shared once, one of my neighbors was going to I think one of the initial protests like that, and I said, is there something particular that you're going to this time? And she said, there's not enough cardboard in the world. But that was a good answer, but thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and none of us are free till all of us are free. And I think we noticed that when we talked about some of the attempted limits being placed on some of our beloved members in our church, and I mean, you know, it's just real easy to think, oh my God, if they can't be themselves, then I can't be myself. And, you know, so yeah, I think that's a really good example of us all being free. I'll figure out what you said in just a second, but George, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I'm going to be on a cruise leaving this Saturday through the 22nd, so I will miss the next two God Talks, and I don't know. I'll be back, and I don't know if I'll make that one, and how tired I'll be. There's a lot that you guys said tonight, and give me thought. And one of my fears has always been to be boxed up in a label. Too easy to be boxed up in a label and then to think that that's who I am without trying to find out who I am and what I represent, and the commonality and the communication and the love that I have for the church, for people, for everybody. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to fight against you. I want to find out more about you. I want to learn where you're coming from. I want you to learn where I'm coming from. And if some of the things that I come from are archaic and don't work anymore, I need to let go of that. I need to let go of that, but I need some tender grace and help with that. And so I have been on the board 3 different times. And so it hurts me when when people say, oh, that board, there they go again. Well, you know, it's not the whole board. And it might just be one person, in fact, that's leading the charge, and everybody else didn't get a chance to say anything. And so, again, I just don't like to be in a box. And I want to know, this is why I'm coming here. I want to know you guys. I want to know what's going on. I want to know, I want to do my study. I want to do my work. I don't want to hear gossip and say, oh, bad. Oh, they shouldn't have done that. I want to find out for myself, just like we're taught at church. If someone teaches you something from the pulpit or somewhere, that's not what you need to believe. You need to go and find out for yourself if you believe that, and then come back. And so I am hoping people have that thought. And their mind. And I know it's 7:30, so I'll stop right here. But I'll miss you guys
Marco
next
just
couple
said,
weeks.
yeah. And by the way, as you're leaving on your cruise, Marco is going to be in the regional Special Olympics tournament. So, and there's a costume contest beforehand. So
Hey, Marco.
Thank you.
that's our little personal note for the night. So enjoy your cruise, and we'll have fun at Special Olympics.
Yes.
Kreger, would you close us out in prayer, and I'll stay on for a bit if anybody wants to chat off record.
Certainly. Holy Spirit, we are grateful for another chance to come to God Talk and talk about God and godly things and not so godly things in some cases. We do it all here. And we're grateful that we have this time and this space together, this beloved community that's trying to forge relationships here that perhaps can become a model to relationships out there. Because that's what we can do. We can model the behavior, we can model the spirituality, we can model what we would hope to see in others. We can model that in ourselves first, and then hope that other people follow suit. That's what we can do. One of the things that we can do. So again, we're just grateful for every person here, and for those who come and go. We hope they come back again at some point. This community is important in the fact that this is recorded and it can be reached and seen later. And so we just pray that that happens and that one or two lives are touched, maybe 50 or 60. We don't know how big you are, God. We just we just think we do, but we don't know. So bless this time and this space. Bless this effort. Give us grace, give us strength, give us hope, give us love, and just help us put one foot in front of the other and just try to walk the walk that and talk the talk that Jesus did. There's so much in the New Testament of the words that Jesus actually said. If we just go by those, like we said earlier, love your neighbor, love yourself, love God. Yep, it is quite simple. Thank you, Lynn. So we just ask for your blessings and let us go in peace and let us get up and do something good tomorrow. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kreger.
What a beautiful prayer. Yes.
Right.
Love you all.
Love y'all.
Love y'all.
Have fun.
Okay, have fun.